Comfortable in chaos. It works for the Navy SEALs. It should hopefully work for sports bettors. And this weekend, if nothing else, was chaotic. Greg McElroy, Stanford Steve here to help sort through everything to get an edge on the competition moving forward. McElroy, we're going to start with Alabama, which means we're going to start with you. Tide go down 40-35 at Vandy on Saturday, despite the fact that they closed as a 23-point favorite. Currently plus 360 to miss the playoff. 3-loss Alabama is likely out of postseason play. Do you see 2 or more losses on the schedule?
I really don't right now. You look at the schedule, still daunting, right? Still a lot of real big potholes. You got Missouri, an angry Missouri coming to town, a South Carolina coming to town, who can sometimes be problematic. You go to Tennessee, you go to LSU, 2 teams that I think's best football's in front of them. I'm not yet sold on Oklahoma. I like their chances there. And then Auburn, if that game were in Jordan-Hare, I think that's a dicey one. And I look at just how parity has infiltrated the sport, guys. And I'm sitting there thinking, I thought 10-2 was about as bad as it had to be to get in the playoff. Now I'm starting to think it wouldn't surprise me with an elite win or 2 and a 9-3 record, and you still might find your way in as like an 11 seed. So I think Alabama, I wouldn't touch that at plus 360 right now. I still think there's a lot of meat left on the bone moving forward, but they do have things that they need to iron out defensively if they're going to reach their ceiling down the road.
Yeah, I agree with Greg. When you look at that schedule, you know, everybody talks about Bama LSU games. It's going to be nuts. That's going to be high scoring. Both teams have issues in the secondary, so that's going to be a high scoring game. But that's a winnable game. And then at Tennessee, I mean, Tennessee has not looked good offensively. Can they take advantage of the Bama secondary? So I'm with Greg. I still right now believe Alabama's going to make it, but I'm not going to lay that amount of price to bet that. So I'm not touching the no, but I'm not touching the yes, but that's where I lean.
Very fair. One thing to keep in mind, that Vandy loss is a bad loss. That's not Ohio State losing to Oregon or Oregon losing to Ohio State. A 2-loss Bama team with the Vandy loss on the schedule. It's something the committee will have to wait if it gets jammed up there at the bottom. All right, Steve, big picture SEC. Texas is now your favorite, plus 150, followed by Bama at plus 375, and Georgia plus 450. How are you going to play this market given what we just watched this past weekend?
The one I would think about is Georgia because they have so many games to play, but then they're going to have to play most likely one of these 3 teams they have left to play. Ole Miss is interesting, but they could be out of this thing with a loss at LSU. I don't want to lay 150 with Texas, even though they're going to be in the SEC title game when you look at what they have. You know, Georgia coming to town in a couple weeks, but nothing too interesting there to me.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I like. I like that A&M price at 7-1. That one intrigues me. If I can get Georgia, and now Georgia already has an SEC loss. They still have road trips to Ole Miss, road trip to Texas. So they might still have 2 losses, and the head-to-head against Alabama is not ideal because I think Bama's probably not going to lose more than 1 more down the stretch. But I like the A&M price, guys. At 7-1. This is a team that's found themselves. Connor Wigman, their quarterback, is now back and healthy. They looked more balanced offensively than they have at any point this year. The defensive line, they have game wreckers across the board. Plus, the schedule's gettable. LSU comes to them. I think they can take advantage of LSU's secondary. They have Texas on their home field, which could be significant. We might see that game 2 weeks in a row. So I think A&M at that price is worth a little dabble.
A&M's interesting because everyone checked out on them after the Notre Dame loss, and they've been cooking since. So that could be where you find some value. I like that opportunity right there. Big Ten football finally taking center stage this weekend. Second-ranked Ohio State finally playing somebody, traveling to Eugene to face third-ranked Oregon. Buckeyes laying 3.5 here, which is jump. You go back to the summer, at the peak, Oregon was -1. So we've seen close to a 5-point move here. Greg, where do you think the line ends up come kickoff?
Well, 3.5 is where I thought it would be when these things posted last night. I'm sitting there thinking, okay, what's home field worth? All these other, in the biggest matchups of the year, home field has been inconsequential, relatively speaking, which is crazy to think about. I kind of like Ohio State at around 6.5. I mean, I think they are that much better right now than what I've seen from Oregon. Now, Oregon's got great firepower. They have an experienced quarterback. I think they have really talented weapons. But what I'm not sold on right now is Oregon in the trenches, where I think Ohio State has most improved this year is along the offensive and the defensive line. They're coming off of a 200-plus yard performance running the football against Iowa. Iowa, of all teams, you run for over 200 against Iowa, you keep the football, and you award a game ball to all 5 of those offensive linemen. I think this is very, very good value on the Buckeyes, and Oregon's getting by right now a little bit on preseason prognostications. I'm not sure that they've been as good as what we thought they'd be in the preseason.
Totally agree with Greg here. I think the idea of Ohio State's defense traveling to Eugene and then the matchup against Dylan Gabriel, who's not played clean football as we've seen in years past. He's been kind of sloppy. When you look at the turnovers in the red zone last week, they get the 2-minute drill going before the half. It's a 21-0 game, and then they cruise from there. But the other side, too, of this is Ohio State in the offense. Greg talked about the trenches. I just look at Chip Kelly as being as creative as there is, and they haven't shown a lot of creativity. I mean, they've thrown a bunch of smoke screens, broken 70-yard plays. They kind of get shut down in the first half last week. They come right out in the third quarter and make that game a no-brainer. So I like Ohio State here with the matchup. I think they have the advantage on the defensive side and when their offense has the ball.
Yeah, I mean, back in the day, we used to have to be kind of hesitant about criticizing college players because they're college players. It's fair, but they get paid now, so we can kind of go a little bit further. Gabriel's not it, man. He's had a lot of opportunities this season. It's one thing when it was game 1 and game 2. He routinely is making big mistakes in big spots and digging his team a hole. That's not going to work against the Buckeyes.
How much have you? How much have you?